While Governor J.B. Pritzker tells Illinois state agencies prepare to find $800 million in cuts for the looming budget, you've got state legislators creating a new state agency to deal with child assistance. So what's going on at the Illinois Statehouse? We love doing a roundup for you to get you plugged in so that, listen, you got jobs, you gotta work. Our job is to be on the ground and report out to you. So be sure to go to thecentersquare.com and find Illinois and see what's going on at the Illinois Statehouse. Be sure to also like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and why not also go to Illinois with the Center Square, donate and register for the newsletters. All right, so if you go to the centersquare.com, you'll see a bunch of different headlines every day, updating that for you, looking at things from a taxpayer's perspective. And right up top there, you'll see that the Freedom Caucus in Illinois is saying, "We told you so," about $800 million in budget cuts. So we got wind of this, and I was able to obtain a copy of this memo from the Deputy Governor, Andy Manar, to state agencies. And this was a letter that was issued on Wednesday. So it says, first, thank you for your agency leadership. Goes on to talk about the budget that was presented in February and the continued support of the governor's mission for providing strategic investments to balance the state budget. As we continue to work with the General Assembly partners to pass our sixth consecutive balanced budget, they say, it's become clear that opposition to proposed revenue, this is important, opposition to proposed revenue is significant enough to direct agencies to prepare for the possibility of reductions to proposed spending. This memo will describe a fiscal year 25 base revenue adjustment as well as next steps for agencies as we make final preparations to get a balanced budget before adjournment May 24th. Now, state legislators have until May 31st to pass a balanced budget with simple majorities. After May 31st, then it has to be supermajorities that support the budget in order for it to move forward. So looking at more of what was said in this report, this memo, you've got the governor's office talking about the proposed budget and different types of adjustments. The state's revenue base, approximately $1.1 billion. These proposed adjustments largely pay for spending that was set into motion in fiscal year 24. So again, continuing programs that were set into motion this current fiscal year. For example, fully phasing in and accounting for the total cost of the Medicaid omnibus bill that impacts both fiscal year 24 and 25. Fiscal year 25 begins July 1st. And as a reminder, the governor's budget proposal increases spending by a mere 1.5% over the current fiscal year. However, if you look at others, who want to point back to several years ago, I remember when a budget was $32 billion in the state of Illinois, and that was considered a lot. Now we're looking at a proposed $52.7 billion. So that's quite an increase. But regardless, the governor's memo goes on to say that, they're going to have to tighten their belt. So the Department of Revenue and the governor's office completed a detailed review of revenue performance through the end of April based on the data not available in February, and will be revising base general revenue fund forecasts upwards by approximately $295 million. Details on the revision can be found in the latest report. However, the revision is not enough to offset the need for additional revenue to support the proposed balanced budget. Conclusion, they say the governor believes his proposed balanced budget introduced in February best reflects the priorities, and the governor will not sign an unbalanced budget, the memo says. Therefore, we must prepare to implement a potential balanced budget scenario with $800 million less in available revenue. While we do not know what specific programs would be impacted should the General Assembly choose to not pass the revenue package, we think it's prudent to prepare for the possibility. All right, so what are these tax increases that the governor's office is proposing here? If you remember, and you've been following along, the various proposed tax increases deal with sports betting, business losses, and even a credit that retailers get. So if you go to thecentersquare.com, you'll find the article and read about the proposed tax increases. One being doubling the state's tax on sports betting companies. It's estimated to increase taxes around $200 million. There's also a cap on the tax retailers' discounts for retailers, acting as the tax collector for sales tax. It's expected to increase taxes by $101 million. An adjustment to the individual income tax standard deduction, estimated at $93 million. But the big one was the cap on the net operating loss deduction for businesses, and that's estimated to raise around $526 million. So these were not popular. The retailers, for instance, they pushed back on the idea of capping the discount retailers get for acting as sales tax collectors and remitting those taxes back to the comptroller's office. I mean, that takes manpower, that takes infrastructure, that takes time. So the retailers get a discount for that, but the governor wanted to cap that discount, bringing in money. Then you get the business groups that are upset about the change in operating loss deductions, and that was a big one. So clearly a lot of different ideas to raise more taxes in Illinois, but the governor's office admitting that it's not popular. So therefore, we must prepare, as the governor's memo says, to implement a potential balanced budget scenario with $800 million less in available revenue. Now, it goes on to talk about keeping in mind federal ARPA funds. Those are the COVID dollars. Make it, with the end of that money, make it impossible to sustain many programs without additional revenue. In addition, please consider that much of state spending is tied to entitlement programs or spending related to consent decree compliance. And finally, as your agency prepares to the impact of $800 million in potential spending reductions, please focus on grant programs and other discretionary spending that has increased in recent years. So here we are. We've got a handful of weeks before May 24th adjournment. They have to pass something by May 31st, and they do have a bunch of contingency days after May 24th to go all the way throughout the rest of the month. So while the governor's office is saying, hey, be mindful, we need to find $800 million in budget cuts, the Freedom Caucus says, we told you so. And Republicans, even after the governor's proposed budget in February, they were essentially screaming from the rooftops that it's unrealistic and the tax increases are not sustainable. Illinois taxes too much already, they say. And the Freedom Caucus, and I'm sure other Republicans as well, saying, we told you so. But all of this, while you've got in the background, again, another story at thecentersquare.com, a bill creating a new childhood state agency with unknown costs, ready for the governor. The governor late last year, he proposed a new early childhood program that would lump in all of these different types of funding programs. From DCFS, from the State Board of Education, from the various other organizations within state government, anything dealing with early childhood development would be put into this new agency. And here's a little bit of the back and forth yesterday on the House floor whenever this was brought up. Again, you can see this at thecentersquare.com.
Programs will stay in their current
agency. This is State Representative Mary Beth Canty. You'll hear from State Representative Blaine Wilhauer. You'll also hear from State Representative Will Davis and Stephen Reich.
It outlines that all early childhood programs will stay in their current agencies for the next 2 fiscal years, being fiscal year 25 and fiscal year 26. And it moves early childhood programs such as the Child Care Assistance Program, early intervention, home visiting, early childhood block grants, including Preschool for All and the Preschool for All expansion, and daycare licensing into the new Department of Early Childhood on July 1st, 2026.
What we're doing here, guys, is we're creating a massive bureaucracy. We have no idea what it's going to cost the taxpayers. We're not exactly sure what we're going to do. Apparently, we have to pass this bill to be able to see what it actually does at the end of the day. And, I just think that it is inappropriate to create an entire government bureaucracy without knowing those important things, especially when there's nothing keeping this from happening right now. I don't think anywhere in the history of government, especially in the history of government in the state of Illinois, have we created a bureaucracy, especially massive bureaucracy, and it worked out well for the taxpayers at the end of the day.
I anticipate that we may even see savings in this. Right now, we're spending money in 4 different agencies. So as we start to consolidate this, you'll have one director that obviously will be a state employee, and that director will have, some other people underneath them working to make this happen. But again, when you're spending money in 4 different places and you have the opportunity to bring it possibly under one roof, and spend it in that one way, I think there are some good things that come out of this.
Every government agency exists to expand its authority and expand its budget. As H.L. Mencken said, the whole aim of practical politics is to keep the populace alarmed and hence clamoring for safety by creating a series of hobgoblins, most of them imaginary.
So, interesting debate. Democrats later on asked the sponsor if there are any hobgoblins in the bill, to which they said there are no hobgoblins. But the initial cost of this, it's going to take 2 years for it to fully implement into a new state agency. Initial cost is $13 million, but they couldn't pinpoint how much that would actually ultimately cost down the line. But some of the programs that would be lumped in under this new state agency for the next fiscal year, the Department of Human Services program, it's going to cost $466.7 million. You've got the State Board of Education early childhood programs for $786.8 million, and the Department of Children and Family Services has for daycare $60.5 million. So that's a fair amount of money, close to what, $2 billion. You're rapidly approaching for this new state agency. It wouldn't be new money, but still it'd be under a new state agency. Something else to consider, whoever takes over the agency is going to make $215,000 a year by law. So that's some of what's going on at the Illinois Statehouse. You've got both chambers off today, the House back late Monday, both chambers back Tuesday, and then it's going to be a sprint to adjournment to try to piece all of this together with the $800 million less in a budget that the governor proposed in February. So rapidly approaching that. So go check out all the rest of the headlines at thecentersquare.com. Also, later on this morning, be sure to check out Illinois in Focus. All right. Illinois in Focus weekly podcast for you to stay plugged in to what's going on in Illinois. All right. So appreciate you guys being here each and every weekday morning here with Bishop on Air. And it's something I'm humbled by to see you guys in the chat room regularly sounding off. So really do appreciate you. And be sure to like, subscribe, and well, it's the obligatory hit that notification bell. All right. I think that's like somewhere in a contract. I have to say that. Is that right? All right. Have a great day. We'll see you next week.